Tonight, questions about Trump's health. Less than 24 hours after the president insisted that he did not know what part of his body underwent an MRI in October, the White House, under pressure from Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, finally released the results of that scan and tests.
President Trump's cardiovascular imaging was perfectly normal. The heart chambers are normal in size, the vessel walls appear smooth and healthy. Overall, his cardiovascular system shows excellent health. His abdominal imaging is also perfectly normal. All major organs appear very healthy and well perfused.
Out front now, Katie Rogers, White House reporter for the New York Times, and Dr. Jeffrey Coleman, former White House physician to Presidents Bush and Obama, who served in that role for 13 years, also the author of Transforming Presidential Healthcare. So I appreciate both of you very much. This is a crucial topic. We're not even 1 year into a 4-year term for a president who is turning 80, and so these things matter to all Americans. Dr. Coleman, this was not a routine disclosure. It was a sweeping organ-by-organ declaration they put out that said everything is quote-unquote perfectly normal. All right, you're looking at this through a doctor's eyes. When they finally put this report out, obviously it took over a month. What do you see in the report?
Well, usually they start with the reason for the test, and he stated that it was preventive. There's nothing preventive about doing an imaging test. An imaging test, advanced imaging, is to diagnose a condition, either that you have it and treat it or you rule it out. So there's nothing preventive about it.
But they never explained what the reason was, is what you're saying.
That's what they had stated. And I would commend them on, when you go to Walter Reed for advanced imaging, to release the results. And we say in medicine, better late than never.
So, Katie, okay, that's obviously crucial, though. I mean, better late than never, and they report that the results were good, but not the reason for the test. You have reported extensively on President Trump's health. In your latest piece, Days, Signs of Fatigue, you and Dylan Friedman, your partner on that, document a shift in Trump's public schedule. And in fact, your analysis shows a 39% drop, Katie, in official events and a much narrower public window between noon and 5 p.m. What more can you tell us and can you share about Trump's day-to-day change this term, the slowing?
Right. Thanks for having me, Erin. And as you point out, I've covered the president's health back to his first term in office, which was really the impetus for this story and for working with Dylan and analyzing his schedule this year and comparing it to his first year in office. And what we found was that this version of President Trump is somebody who only offers a small sliver of his public life up for Americans to see. Again, yes, the story said between 12 and 5 on average are the times we can expect to see him. The reason we looked into analyzing his public schedules, and by the way, that's just data, that's not editorializing or offering opinions on it, it's scheduling, it's analyzing the raw data, is that we noticed that Mondays were pretty quiet. So we looked into, well, is that true? And we saw that Mondays are his least active days of the week, meaning, you know, there were other days that were pretty frequently. Fridays are pretty busy. And then we looked into first start time, first end time. The end times are not any different from the first term. So it's actually an even, it's a greater reduction in public schedule this time around.
So Dr. Trump last night described his MRI as perfect, to use his word, but then he said something else, which is very strange and does fit with what he said before, and that many have found very hard to stomach. And that is that he says that he does not know what part of his body was even scanned in the MRI. Here's how he said it.
I have no idea. It was just an MRI. What part of the body? It wasn't the brain, because I took a cognitive test and I aced it. I got a perfect mark, which you would be incapable of doing.
Okay, so just put that last thing aside there, doctor. I just am curious as to your take on that. You know, an MRI is not like a comfortable thing. It's not just an everyday kind of a thing. Is it possible, as you see it, for someone to have no idea what part of their body was being analyzed in the MRI?
For a 79-year-old man, they have to go through extensive questioning to make sure they don't have metal outside of their body or inside of their body. They also get completely undressed. They get put in a claustrophobic tube. Sometimes they need medication, sometimes they need sedation. A tech has to ask them, hey, sir, do you know what we're doing? And get consent. And he would acknowledge that. So he would say heart or abdomen. And then you also put coils, which is like an apron, on that body part, on the chest, on the abdomen, because you're going to focus in. So if he says he has no idea, sometimes we see that in 79-year-olds that aren't engaged in their care, or they're distracted, or they maybe have, a short-term memory loss from a couple months ago. But most 79-year-olds remember that they did a MRI of the heart, they did an MRI of the abdomen, and that's what I would expect them to answer.
Yeah, I mean, from the way you describe it, it would be pretty hard to not know. It'd be almost impossible, in fact, to not know. Katie, today's statement that came out, though, when they put the results out, emphasizes the president's long-term vitality. Those are the words used in the report. You have reported, though, something that we've seen video evidence of, right, which is drowsiness during midday events, which could happen with anyone. But of course, when they happened with Biden, a lot of coverage was given to them. So, it's fair to point out that it happens to Trump as well. Here, nodding off for a few seconds during an Oval Office event that began around noon on November 6th. That was that announcement about cutting prices for weight loss drugs. So how does, but when the White House has talked about your reporting, include that and some of the data that you just referred to, they've said it's all unequivocally false. And let me just play that for you.
That is unequivocally false, and it's deeply unfortunate that this story was written by the same outlet and the same reporter who wrote this. Biden is doing 100% fine after tripping while boarding Air Force One. Oh, same outlet, same reporter who wrote that President Trump is not fit for the job. Are you kidding me? You all see him almost every single day. He is the most accessible president in history. He is taking meetings around the clock.
What's your response to that, Katie?
Well, my immediate response is that I think this White House knows how headlines work, and those headlines were taking quotes from press secretaries and also the White House physician at the time. Those aren't editorializing the president's health. My second response to that is that, another point of fact is that President Trump and his physicians have not always been upfront about the health conditions he has faced. Case in point, he was much sicker with the coronavirus than the public knew at the time in 2020. Another interesting point of fact is that the president has fallen asleep in a public courtroom on camera before, and that time he said, I was bored and fell asleep. So, he's done this before. The difference right now is that his aides are under immense pressure to present a vigorous, this president has done more than any president ever image to the public, and they are under pressure from him to do that. So I think that is the difference between then and now. There's a political pressure on him. He's traveled very little domestically. That's also in our story. He's focused a lot of his time and attention on foreign policy matters. The economy is showing signs of incredible stress, and that all comes to head in a president who is very upset behind the scenes and is, again, wondering, much as he did in the first term, why people aren't defending him.